Hey guys, it's Alan, the Fireman 1028, and today I'm back with our 2022 Honda CRF300L. And if this looks familiar behind me, I'm back at Enoree State Park, and what we're doing today is we're going to get a baseline off-road riding of our 300L before we start adding power. If you've seen one of our last videos, the Supermoto video on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and I'll put that somewhere up here, that is our baseline for our own road riding. And we're going to do the same thing with, with the 390. But this, I really wanted to get a good off-road ride on the 300 to kind of, that way I can really give my impressions before we start adding power. It just didn't seem fair to not do that. Now I'm filming this after the ride has already been done, and it was very muddy out there, as you'll see coming up in the video here. So we usually ride at 7/10, 8/10. This was about 4 or 5/10 today. We didn't want to crash, didn't want to lay the bike down, didn't want to mess anything up. We don't have any good hand guards on it, so really muddy conditions. So rode it real nice and easy, just so we didn't mess anything up. But I still was able to get a good baseline for how the riding goes. So while you're watching the video, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Subscriptions are the absolute ultimate compliment for me, and it really helps the channel. And then share the video. So before we get started, I'm gonna try something new. That's kind of been on my heart, that I've been praying about. How to use this channel, not only for information, but also an outreach. So what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start doing a verse of the day. So today's verse of the day is 1 Timothy, chapter 2, verses 5 and 6. For there is one God, and there is one mediator between God and men, the man Jesus Christ, who gave himself as a ransom for all, which is the testimony given at the proper time. That's powerful right there. How about that for a first verse of the day? I know, I'm working on my language. I'm trying to cut out my cuss and everything else, so I apologize for that. But how about that for a first verse? There's one mediator between God and man, and that's Jesus Christ. So thank you guys for watching. Let's get to the video. All right, so hopping on the bike. Like I said, I'll give you a quick recap. And yes, I do have my 360 camera on my helmet. Top of my helmet, just trying to get some footage there. That's about the only daggone place I can put that thing that it doesn't bother the absolute piss out of me. So, like I said, this is going to be just a nice, easy, first ride off-road of our CRF 300L. And like I said, all we're looking to accomplish today is just trying to set some baselines to see how the bike does off-road. We're not going to do anything crazy today, mainly because I'm out here by myself. Just some light riding. And just to see how the bike does. And we're still kind of feeling the bike out a little bit too, to see what mods the bike needs. The suspension's already been addressed, but I swear it feels way too soft. I'm gonna have the guys at Privateer Connection take a look at it for me and figure out what, kind of give me a baseline, see what we have. Give me a baseline, see what we have, and give some recommendations on the suspension. Because I swear it feels awfully soft. Like I said, we're just kind of we're getting a feel for the bike, getting a feel for how the suspension does. We're getting a feel for the power, even though there's kind of very few places we can really get on the power. Just kind of seeing how the power feels, how the throttle feels. This place is a lot muddier than I ever remember. I'm surprised I had this thing open. Really surprised I have it open. place is a lot muddier than it usually is. And these stock IRC tires are not great at mud and whatnot. So we're really going to take it easy. Nothing crazy today. Again, we're just trying to get a feel for the bike. Get a feel for, plus leaves are starting to fall, so that's not helping our available traction. And just kind of feel the power. You know, we talked about. I talked previously in my last video about the power that this bike is putting down, but then about the 390 Enduro and the power it puts down, but where it puts the power down. Peak. Now these are dyno numbers, not claimed numbers. So the 390 Cycle World did a dyno test of the Svartpillion 401, the 2024 model, which has the updated 390 motor in it, and they put down 38 horsepower at something like 9,000 RPM, and the 550 Performance have done their own dyno figures, and they've put down about 20 horsepower out of a stock 300L. Now I know in your mind that's like, wow, that's a huge difference, and you're not completely wrong. But my goal with this one here, and again we're taking it really easy today. My goal with this one here is to not necessarily to match horsepower for horsepower, but to get the power to weight ratio as close to it as possible. And once I started digging in, I kind of actually found some really interesting numbers that I want to go over. And I'll put some graphs up on the screen as we talk about it. So the stock, power to weight ratio for the 300L is roughly like 13 to 1. So 13 pounds for every horsepower. The 390 Enduro is like 9.4. So I mean that's a pretty big difference. The weight of the 300L really helps it out. This place is muddy. Surprised it's open. Usually they're really good about closing this place if it gets muddy. So that's a pretty big difference in power to weight ratio. That's where 550 Performance comes in. 550 Performance is a company that, and actually I've kind of followed them since the days they first started. They've got products for the 250L. Now they're branching out. They got 450L products, but the 300L is really where they made their name. They really made their name there by coming out with the absolute best products for the 300L. And I'm a previous customer, so they were the natural company to reach out to as far as doing mods. And I reached out to Maverick, the owner, and I told him what my plan was. I was like, hey, I want to make a 300L match the 390 Enduro. And he's like, okay, I'm interested, let's talk. So we started looking at the dyno graphs that he provides, as well as the one that Cycle World did. And we're never going to reach 38 horsepower at the wheels. You're never going to reach that with a 300L motor unless you really stroke it out. Airy Henning has got a great kit. Takes it from like 286, something like that, 289, up to 301, which is not a huge big bore kit, but what he was looking at was reliability of the engine. Past that, you get into a lot of piston slap and everything else, and the skirt, it's not, it loses reliability. As you add power, it loses reliability. So Airy, whose kit he developed, 301 was the magic number that he came up with, that he was happy with. So he and Maverick with 550 Performance have really kind of partnered up with this kit. So Maverick sells Aries kit, but then Maverick also has kits prior to that, stage 1, 1.5, 2, 3, before you get to a big bore kit. And so I started looking at the numbers, the math on it, and again, I haven't turned above 6,000 RPM yet today, and that's important to note. So I started looking at the horsepower numbers at 6,000 RPM. This is muddy at 6,000 RPM. And the interesting thing that I found is that the KTM really doesn't start making its power until 7,000 RPM. And that's for off-road riding, that's pretty high up there. I mean, like I said, I'm turning 4,000 right now in second gear. So it really don't start making their power until 7,000 RPM, and then it really ramps up to 8 and up to 9 and this and that. So I use 6,000 RPM as an arbitrary number, but also a number that I was comfortable with riding at to compare. Good Lord, to compare the two bikes. This place is a muddy mess. To compare the bikes. And what I found there is that even in stock configuration, the 300L is not that far off of the 390. And then even better than that, once you add the stage 1 kit, the 300L is putting out 23.5 horsepower at the wheels, and the 390 is only putting out 24. So which I found really interesting. So basically just adding the stage 1 kit, which is the tune, you're not opening the engine up. That's the key. You're not opening the engine up at all with the stage 1 kit. It's ECU, either tune or sending your ECU in to Maverick, or him sending you a whole new ECU, and then you can send your stock one back or keep it, and you pay a deposit. And some other mods, some accompanying mods with the airbox. Exhaust factors into it. These IRC tires are not for this right here. I'm telling you. I'm glad I came in the road today, because after the rain that they're going to get from this system, this is probably going to be closed for a bit. The goal today is just don't fall. don't fall. Or don't get hurt. How about that? Falling's not the end of the world. Just don't get hurt. Honestly, had I known it was this muddy, I probably wouldn't have been on here, because I just, like I said, the rangers that manage this are really particular about keeping their trails in good shape and not getting rutted up. And these conditions will really mess things up. Anyway, so the stage 1 kit gets you pretty dadgum close as it is, which I thought was really interesting. Working the hell out of this clutch. But again, it's all second gear. Everything I'm doing is in second gear. I'm not trying to break any laps, just trying to get a baseline. But even stage 1, you're within half a horsepower at 6,000 RPM. Now, peak is still way off, and overall power to weight ratio is still fairly low, but you can see it starting to come down. So you go from like a 13 to 1 down to 11.7 to 1, just going stage 1, which again, you're not opening up the engine at all. So already you're within, you're within just a little over 2 pounds per horsepower. And then as you continue to add power, which we plan on doing, I mean, we plan on going to a full big bore kit. And by the time you get to stage 3, you're actually making more, your power to weight ratio is actually lower than what the 390 Enduro is in a stock configuration. Now, what would only be fair is to take the 390 and to take it to a dyno with the DCAT, with the DNA filter, and with the tuners, either the Fuel X, which I paid for, or the Cooper, which again I paid for, and see what the 390 is actually making at the wheels with the modifications. So I know of a couple in Charlotte, and we may end up going and just paying for that just to see, so we're getting an accurate representation. It wouldn't be fair to compare the stock 390 numbers to modified 300 numbers when the 390 is not stock. I know I've really sounded up to this point like I want the 300 to win, and that's not necessarily the case. What I want is just as fair of a comparison as I can get, and to give some alternatives to the 390 and to the 300. This is a muddy mess. All right, let's get rolling. I'll take a phone call. So like I said, everything we've been doing up to this point has been in second gear, and honestly, I doubt we're going to get out of second gear with the amount of mud that's on the trails currently. They are pretty chewed up right now. So the stock improved tune from 550, that's the one that takes it down to 11.7. I was mistaken earlier. I always get the stock improved and the stage 1 mixed up. That takes it down to like 11.7 pounds per horsepower from the stock 13. The stage 1 kit, this is where it gets cool. It takes it down to 10.9 pounds power to weight ratio, which is only 1.5 pounds off from the stock 390 Enduro, which is really cool. So again, without even opening the engine up, you're getting pretty daggum close to the power to weight ratio of the 390. Now, the only reason we're able to do this is because the 390 Enduro is a pig, and there's really no way of getting around that. You know, it weighs 360 pounds, maybe a couple less now that we've taken off that we did the DCAT and whatnot, but it's still it's still a good size bike. There's no way of getting around that. Again, it's not a lightweight bike. The platform that it was built on was not meant to be a lightweight bike. It was meant to be an adventure bike, and the 390 Adventure R, it does a great job of that. One thing I can give this 300L on that I can't give to the 390 is the smoothness of the throttle. Now it's a little snatchy at certain areas, but I hadn't had the first flame out. Hadn't had the first few dry areas where I can actually open it up. I hadn't had the first flame out. It's a very smooth and linear throttle. So I hadn't had any issues there. Ooh. It's a little too wet to be riding like that today. That's why I'm going to just do it in the dry areas, or the dry-ish areas. So even doing that low-speed stuff, you know, trying to feather second gear, have not had the first flame out. Which by itself is worth something. Now, like I said, I said in the intro about the, I did the stock on-road video with the Supermotos on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and that's not really a road that you can you know, you can romp it on, but you can still, you know, ride at a spirited pace. As long as you don't have tourists in front of you, which I did. But still, it gave me enough to see, you know, to kind of get a feel for the bike in an on-road setting. Again, I'm not completely new to the 300 series. I had a 300L Rally, and you know, never really had an issue with the power. I mean, you kind of know what you're getting with a 300. The issue I had was the suspension, which again, it was the main reason why this bike in particular interests me, was because the suspension had already been done to a certain extent. There we go. Come on. Now these IRCs aren't the worst tire in the world, but I wouldn't call them great either. I definitely think an MT21 and a D606 combo is, or even maybe like an MT16, which is the more aggressive front tire, are in order. Clear those tires off. This is probably going to be the only trail we get on today, just with the rain coming in and kind of a time constraint. A little ruddy right there. But again, second gear power has been fine, has been no problem at all. A little whoopee right there. Whoop, 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 whoop. Yeah, second gear power has been just fine. And, you know, feathering the clutch, moving things around. It hadn't had the single flame out. The throttle is, of course, it's still a cable operated throttle. So there's a certain amount of familiarity versus a ride-by-wire system, which the 390 Enduro is. Now, there's no doubt that on highway, the 390 is going to be a much better bike. I might have to. Good Lord, this is real muddy. Even with all that, I've been feathering the clutch the whole time. Not the first flame out. Not the first, somebody's boot. Not the first flame out, not the first issue. Again, we're not pushing hard at all. I mean, we're, you know, my whole thing is 8/10. This is like 4/10. We're not pushing hard at all. Not even standing up. Fan just came on, which is you know, not surprising considering the speed and RPM that we're going at. Bike's running nice and smooth. And you can, like I said, you can definitely feel the difference in the weight. That's the biggest difference in these two bikes is the weight. Which again, is not surprising. I mean, we're not talking about a 10-pound difference. We're talking about 60 pounds. And these bikes compete really in the same category. They really do. That's why I thought it'd be fun. One, so Sully and I both can have a dual sport bike. But then, like I said, can you make the 300L an apples to apples, a Granny Smith to Macintosh Apple comparison? And yes, for my younger viewers, Macintosh is an Apple. And yes, that's where Apple computers got their name from, was Macintosh. Yes, that is. There's your history lesson of the day. All right, so that's it. That's going to wrap it up. That's the C Trail. As he about falls over. That's the C Trail Look at this, even this even this puddle right here. Good Lord. I think that's going to wrap up for the day. That was enough, you know, enough seat time to really kind of get a feel for what the 300L is capable of in a stock configuration. Let's pull our gear off and let's recap our thoughts. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap up our off-road stock test, our stock off-road test, our baseline off-road test of our 2022 Honda CRF300L down at Enoree State Park. The conditions were really muddy, muddy enough where I'm like, you know what? I got 2 trails in. I got some good footage. I think I got enough of a baseline, enough of a ride to kind of feel how the stock level is, and then now we can start adding power, and we can come back and do the same trails and feel the difference in the power. Hopefully, be a little bit drier. It was very muddy out there, and there's a system getting ready to move in, so it's going to be even muddier. So, like I said, I think the baseline felt great. I spent a lot of time in second gear, feathering second gear, going through mud, everything else. Did not have the first flame out the entire time. If this was the 390 Enduro, I can't say the same thing. It probably would have flamed, even with the Fuel X and with the Cougar. With either one of those, it still would have flamed out. Now, I still haven't been able to get down here and do a Fuel X Pro Plus because the bike is out of commission with a warped rear rotor, and the 2022 390 does not fit. It's not the same size rotor, so whatever. Anyway, I was going to swap them out and just keep on riding and then order a new one, but that doesn't work. But anyway, like I said, I'm very impressed with the stock. No wonder this bike has been so popular with so many people around the world. It's starting to rain right now. As an adventure bike or a dual sport bike, the characteristics were perfect off-road. With the suspension, the rear shock is still a little soft. I think we can go in and we can crank down the preload on that and really give us more on the rear. Front end actually felt fine. I thought the front end was going to be the weak point, but actually the gold valves, the Racetech springs, everything felt great. I still need to figure out what the weight of the springs is, and the only way to find that out is to break them open, since I don't have the original owner's information. But like I said, it felt great. I really cannot wait to start adding power to see how this thing compares. And once conditions are right, we can get both bikes out here, ride them together. Sully and I'll do switch them back and forth and really give a comparison. So we're going to wrap this up here. So thank you guys for watching. If you see anything that you like, comment, and subscribe, and then share the video. But subscriptions are the absolute ultimate compliment for me. That tells me that we're doing something right. So thank you guys for watching. God bless. Roll Tide, and remember, tomorrow needs you. Thanks, guys.